Howdy, folks. Today we're going to talk about the Kinera URD. Thank you, Bucky, for sending me this pair of awesome tribrids. It's actually the first Kinera I have enjoyed so far out of two. Haha. All right, so let's talk about these guys. They are $650. They have two Sonian electrostatic drivers, two titanium crystal diaphragm coaxial coated dynamic drivers, and one Kinera balanced armature, which is customized, called an 11021, whatever that is. They have 20 ohms of impedance and a sensitivity of 107 decibels per milliwatt, meaning that you should be able to run these off of a phone. Decent phone. They don't take a lot of power, and I think they would scale better with probably a better device. I would say that I do think that basically having an impedance of 20 ohms versus a lower impedance is a benefit for most headphones. It kind of bothers me when they're, say, 7 or 10 ohm, and really what that means is there's this rule that we all know as headphone folks, or IEM folks, which is sort of like the rule of divide by 8. So if the impedance of a headphone is, let's say, 80, you divide by 8, and that means the impedance of your output device should be about 10, which would not affect any of the frequencies that your headphones produce. So if we had an impedance of your headphones of 8, then your amplifier would have to be somewhere around 1 or lower to not affect the frequency ranges. Just some interesting information. So 20 is a nice number. That should work with just about any normal type of amplifier, just to mention that. And let's just look at Kinera's little web page here, which shows more specifications about these headphones. Very cool. We got a little breakdown right here. Shows the coaxial dynamic drivers, and I think they said they were 8 millimeter. And I would say that the size of the dynamic driver itself influences, I think, the bass curve, or at least to my impressions, in my ears it does. So this being an 8 millimeter means that probably the bass shelf needs to be a little bit higher, a little more than a larger driver, say like a 14 millimeter, for instance. But a cool little breakdown there. What else they got to see here? I did not actually get to see the entire box of stuff. Whoops, sorry. I only just got the headphones, but it does look like a nice little package here. I think I see some removable, what is that, 2.5, 3.5, maybe 4.4 millimeter plugs. Nice box and case and all that sort of stuff. I am not a huge fan of the aesthetics of these headphones. I don't know why. I mean, it's not like they're bad or anything, but I guess I would prefer if they were clear and you could see in them. And well, I don't know. It's a little funky. I mean, we have like a little bit of off white here, almost looks like earwax, and then obviously some nice, like, I don't know, scaly kind of green stuff going on. Little pinhole vent for the back of the coaxial dynamic drivers or something in that range. Speaking of that, they do not have pressure buildup. I actually asked my buddy Bucky if he had any of that when he uses these. He said no, so they must have some type of venting going on. I definitely do not experience pressure buildup, which is very good. All right, moving on. Anything else these guys have to say here? Let's see. Yep, 8 millimeter coaxial dynamic driver, and so let's just look at this real quick. Here's the official graph from Kinera. We can see here that we have a, interesting bass shelf. So nice slow glide up, or down, I should say, to 5 hertz. Really? Wow. All right. Interesting. Then pin a peak of about 2.2, maybe 2.3-ish, something in that range. It's hard to say, but a little dippity dip. Then we come back up about 4.5, 5K. And interestingly enough, on this graph, that is slightly above the pinna, looks like, maybe. Then we have a probably 8K peak, something like that, and then we come down. Nice. Now, here is the graph that I measured with my 711 coupler. Let me just pull that out. There we go. And this is modified, so the modified coupler, modified coupler does not have any front volume where you put the tip into the coupler. And I wanted to bring that up because that, typically when you see graphs of pretty much anybody, they're all going to try and hit an 8K peak here. So they adjust the tip of the headphone into the coupler, the very tippity tip, until they find that 8K peak. But I found that, and also according to some engineering forums, you can look up my video on this, that the actual proper way to do it is more like this. And this is a Jerry Harvey Audio, JH Audio, video about them doing some measurements, freak phase. But here's the important thing. So look at their 711 coupler right there. Let me just go backwards, sorry, went too fast. Okay, so they have no tip on this coupler right here, none. That looks pretty much just like they are sticking the tip of the, just like a standard IEM tip right into this and pressing it in there, like so, boom. And my 711 coupler has been modified to basically do the same thing. So no front air volume in front of the tip, and then just the 711 microphone in there. So just to mention that, I think I'm on the right track with that. So my graph is probably going to be a little more accurate than typically you would find on other measurement things. Sorry about that. All right, let's talk about the sound. The sound. Let me just flip over there. Cool. All right, so if I had to give these sort of a, I don't know, we'll call it a sound signature of fairly neutral with a bass boost, a little bit warm lows. So I believe, like I said, since they have the 8mm coaxial dynamic driver, I think they had to up the bass shelf just a little bit, mid bass just a little bit, so that we had a little more meat on the bones on this guy. And like I said, it tends to be that when you have a larger dynamic driver, you can get away with less of a bass shelf. They just produce more physical air. That's my impression. I do think that the mids peak in a pretty nice place. They're a little bit forward from my favorite, which would be around 2.5K. Just flip over to the graph. I guess I should just talk about this. So, yeah, so this is a little bit early, and so what that comes across to me as sounding like is these are more in your face than, say, like an EJ07. It's not in a bad way, but just a little bit more in your face. And so, we have typical sort of a pinna peak here, ending here. Let's see, the decibels for that are, what are we at here? 70, about 2-ish to, I think we're about maybe 7 to 8 dB of pinna gain, which is really quite nice. And then actually the bass comes up a little bit over the pinna, which is maybe like 4 to 5 dB over the pinna, about 4 probably. And then a nice little slope down, got a little bump here at about 5 point something, and then a slow slope down and some energy and extension above 10K. Again, 711 couplers are not accurate in that area, but all right. So let's go over the different aspects of this headphone. Bass. Bass I find to be very, very nice with this. It is especially nicely tuned for metal and rock and roll. That nice, fat, slow glide down or up, whatever you want to say, really gives rock and roll a nice low end, meat on the bones. Kick drums are killer. Metal guitars have a nice resonance thunk to them. Love it. So that's a really nice bass shelf, and I really like the pinna gain as well. I have changed my opinion over time about pinna gain, and of course this matters in terms of the entire signature, but I really find this type of pinna under 10 to be very nice on the ears with a variety of genres, probably a greater variety of genres than if it were at 10K, for instance. And then I find the treble to be not pushed and slightly forgiving in this range. So if this graph right here was a little more, a few more dB between, 3K and 5K, up here, that would come across a little more clear, probably give you a little more clear edge to the sound, but also much more unforgiving for various styles of music. So I kind of appreciate this style tuning. Kind of unique, actually. And the treble is nice and not pushed, and it doesn't hurt pretty much in any case that I've been able to tell. So running my music pretty hot, loud volume, no problem. Genres, let's just flip over to a few genres and talk about them. Blues, fantastic. I'll get into this in a sec. So blues, just the entire frequency graph here really does a great job. The low end of blues just comes across really nice. It's not pushed too hard, doesn't come across like bass head or bloaty or any of that junk. Real nice. So blues is killer. Classical I found to be quite nice. The treble details really did a great job bringing textures to life. Disco was really, really nice. No problems there. And so getting into the next one, which is electronica, I do find that with electronica, this is like EDM, dance stuff, more modern music, that having a deeper stage is a benefit. And because I'm guessing, because the pin gain on this is a little bit forward, to me that puts the music or the sound more in my face. It's like just a little bit more. And so the depth factor goes away a little bit. And if we look at also the graph here, we don't really have it like quote-unquote 10K notch as such. It's not really overtly on the graph. And I don't really hear this as being overtly 3D. It is very nicely wide. And I would say that on my Geshelli amp or Geshelli DAC I just got, that it actually sounded much better than on some of my other, lower class DACs apparently. Much wider, much more interesting staging left to right. So interesting stuff. So anyway, EDM was, we'll give it a half and half. Really nice to listen to, but not, the depth was a little bit lacking, but no peaky parts or anything like that. Excellent extension on the bass stuff, drops, all that kind of stuff, wonderful. Jazz I found to be very nice. It just has a nice bass shelf, nice mids. All the instruments are right in the pocket. Really, really nice. I would say, again, it's a more of a neutral type of sound. So if you're used to more of a V-shaped sound, which sort of, pops a little bit more, this is a little bit less of the pop. Metal I found to be fantastic, and that's surprising to me. Maybe not looking at the graph, but a lot of high-end headphones that want to have a lot of details resolution, they just fail with metal. It's just too much. But these did really well. Nice meat on the bones, the chunk on the guitars, the thunk, just excellent. And R&B I found to be really, really nice. No problems there. Vocals, really good. Everything right in the pocket, nice bass. Reggae was fantastic, actually. Trying to think of anything that I could say, but Burning Spear's one of the oldest roots reggae guys that's still playing. I just saw him in Denver. Freaking fantastic. Anyway, his stuff he recorded in the 70s is raw analog stuff mixed on analog mixing consoles, whatever those were back in those days. But that stuff can be really rough on headphones that have too much pop, too much contrast between mids to bass, too much pinna, and this did a fantastic job. Love it. Reggae's awesome. Rock and roll, perfect, killer. Good amount of lows, man. Everything was just, right in the pocket. Soundtrack's pretty damn good. Can't complain. Everything was, soundtracks could be any one of these genres pretty much, but everything was good. Moving on to Vaporwave, I'm going to give it probably a no on Vaporwave, mostly because Vaporwave does so much better when you have a deep stage. There's just so much wacky stuff going on in Vaporwave. The deep stage just, really makes everything so much of a viscerally 3D, and it's a little bit lacking on that, so there's that. Vintage and Lounge was pretty much fantastic. Vocals, all the sort of acoustic instruments, Django Reinhardt, all that stuff was fantastic. Even older recordings that were pretty rough. I didn't, like some stuff that was recorded on vinyl, I didn't find any of the pops and clicks in that to be off-putting, which is kind of one of the things I notice, because it puts me off. I can't listen to those tracks on certain headphones. So, lots of talking. All right, let's go back. Come here. Here we go. All right, so are these recommended? The answer is yes, they are. They're really, really cool headphones. Very unique tuning, unique signature. If someone were asked me, would I buy these? Probably not. Maybe a custom version that has a clear shell. I just like clear shells. Yeah. But they're not going to be a short bus wreck. Price a little high. And as everybody knows, I highly prioritize 3D staging, and these have a little bit less of that than my favorite. But overall, these are killer tribrids, and I think they really killed it by, tribrids, but 2 dynamic drivers in these, which is extremely unique, and the only set so far I've heard with multiple dynamic drivers that I actually enjoyed. Usually they're just whack in all respects, so fantastic. Really, really cool. Recommended. Awesome URDs. Thank you, Bucky, and I will talk to you on the next one.